So there's this idea floating around right now that the home barista now has the upper hand. You can make better stuff than what your local coffee shop is, and I don't fully disagree with that. There's a lot of nuance to it, though. I think people like James Hoffman and Lance Edrick are right to point out that power shift happening right now, but we need to caveat it a little bit. Here's the thing. I own a coffee shop. I fix our machines, I roast every single batch of beans we've ever served. So I brew at a professional level and at a home level very obsessively. So in this video, I want to break down a full comparison. The constraints, the reps, the ritual, all of it in 8 major points. We're going to talk about which one is kind of in the lead right now and how you can make better espresso no matter where you are, whether you're commercial or you're at home. I know we've talked about this before, but there's the difference between what you're going for. You've got the triangle of quality, speed, and ritual. And this triangle is assuming that you're going for consistency, and you get to pick 2 of these. A coffee shop has to go for speed big time and quality big time. Those are their 2 big constraints. A lot of shop owners will say they want to produce a drink in 1 minute. That's a giant speed constraint that the home user just doesn't have. To achieve that kind of goal, you have to basically only use a tamper, have your portafilter, and that's kind of it. You don't really get much else outside of these 2 things. So you can get speed by focus. And so you end up focusing on your tamper and you focus on your portafilter. A lot of coffee shop owners would argue with me that the list is first quality and second speed. But I'm going to tell you now that these, for probably 99% of shops, are actually swapped. People care more about speed than quality because a slow shop is a closed shop. They go out of business. With commodity powerhouses like Starbucks, everyone now expects their drink to be produced almost instantly. So now even the highest quality shops have to focus a lot on speed. Otherwise, people complain too much and you get bad reviews. And so the espresso making has to be extremely quick for a coffee shop to the point that your drink should be done right now. And for the coffee shop, you have ritual as almost a non-factor. Now, there is a caveat to that. Usually, you'll end up having that with your music or the mugs you use or whatever your presentation is. The aesthetic of the shop is your ritual. So like I said, you've got 60 seconds. That is your goal for a coffee shop. And my question is, what is the best possible drink I can produce within those 60 seconds? And that's kind of my limiting factor. You see how short of a time that is. So puck screens, things like that, they're out. A lot of times shops will use calibrated tampers and stuff like that, but most of the time calibrated tampers can end up clogging, so it's just not even worth the time. You can try fancy latte art pitchers, that's okay, but outside of that, I mean, I'm looking at my repertoire of things we have. You don't do much else. You cannot afford the time of single dosing in a coffee shop setting. It has to be in a hopper. There's just a lot of stuff where, like I said, you have a portafilter and you have a tamper, and almost everything else just doesn't get used or doesn't happen. But those are usually in population centers way, way, way bigger than 100,000 people. So if I have a giant time constraint of these 60 seconds, there's obviously a lot of returns that I can't get on, say, using a WDT tool or a blind shaker or single dosing or things like that. A lot of commercial equipment gets you really, really close with this quality factor. But again, that is actually number 2. You don't get number 1 on quality. Number 1 is almost always on speed, which is the sad truth. But this is one of the reasons there is a power shift right now towards the home barista rather than the coffee shop. Within 60 seconds, you can usually seek a 9 out of 10 shot every single time, but a 10 out of 10 is honestly out of reach. That said, consistency, because we are spending sometimes in the ballpark of $30,000, you can get really, really far out towards this speed and quality end of the spectrum because you can afford it. You can pretty much always produce a 9 out of 10 shot, and the factor of how close you get to that 9 out of 10 with your flavor sealing is usually it depends on who owns the shop, what beans they're using, and how talented that shop owner is. normally at being a geeky home barista. So, point number 2 is the patience of the home barista. Going back the triangle of quality, ritual, and speed, if you are the type of person to be watching YouTube videos on how to make your espresso better like this one, you probably don't care about speed. But you do care, number 1 most likely is quality. This is the big factor for you, with number 2 being ritual. Usually, if you have a lever machine at home and that was an intentional choice and not a budget choice, this might actually be number 1 for you with ritual. Because here's the thing, I always say you have what's known as a flavor ceiling, with 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest. And your espresso flavor is somewhere on here. And this scale is a factor of your beans, your grind, your water, and your method. Now, I like to separate these 2 out because usually your method and your water kind of end up solidifying, so you never have variation with your water and your method. You're going to change your grind a lot and your beans maybe every couple weeks. This is what dictates how far you get along. So your water and your method might usually put you at, say, like a 4 out of 10. But then how well you can dial in your grind and the beans you choose are what dictate where you fall from that 4 out of 10 to 10 out of 10. Now, I'm putting something like a Starbucks shot at below a 4 out of 10. That's an important point. But you get the idea. So I would say that most home people with great gear, not with crap gear. It depends a ton on your grinder. Your grinder is what limits you from the 10 out of 10. And then your beans kind of put you on the spectrum. So let's say you got like a Weber EG1 at home. You actually might have a 10 out of 10 max. And your beans and your method and your water are what dictate where on this spectrum you're going to end up landing. So any errors along this way will end up significantly hampering your ability. So a coffee shop normally is able to hit that 9 out of 10 mark. So this might be the shop's limit, but you have a limit out here at a 10 out of 10. But this requires a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a lot of extra tools. You get to do things like use your calibrated tamper that might clog up on you. You obviously can have a good machine like a La Marzocco. You can use things like your blind shaker. I don't have a WDT here with me, but use that too. And you can also single dose and have measured vials and stuff like that. And if you want to do leveling like I do, you can. And you can time every single shot. And you're probably also using a gram scale. And you're probably also not just using a standardized house blend, but you might be able to play around with what some specialty roasters are doing. And then all at the end, you put it in your nice fancy mug that costs you $30 because you can. That's what you get to do at home. That's the patience you get to have. That might take you 8 to 10 minutes. A coffee shop, like we talked about, needed to be done in 60 seconds. And speaking of being done in 60 seconds, I have a timer going for the home use. The home use drink just finished. And I started both of those timers at the same time. So you get the difference in the amount of time you can spend at home versus whenever you're out and about at a coffee shop. And on top of all this, I do want to make an important point that I think almost no one online that I see talks about, and that is your ritual. If you have ever done something yourself and you have felt a sense of pride around that, you understand the importance around the ritual. I've always said this, that the best cup of coffee will almost always come whenever you are camping in view of mountains. Whenever you can see, you're outside, you're in nature. Even though you're probably making it cowboy coffee style and it's going to be a little bit crappy in the way you approach it, this will always, always, always add a giant ritual factor that you can't underestimate. It does make a giant difference to where all of a sudden you hit the mythical 11 out of 10. I know it's usually a brewed cup, but let's call it the God shot. whenever you are out in nature, even though empirically it's probably not going to be the best thing you ever make. Ritual matters. Your input matters. It helps you enjoy the thing that you do. It brings a sense of pride. You know exactly how it was done. If you are hypercritical like me, it will also sometimes make a 10 out of 10 become a 7 out of 10. So I make a really good shot, and then I'm like, well, I didn't do X, Y, and Z, so now I perceive it being a 7 out of 10. So it is a bit of a double-edged sword, but it does matter a ton. Now, let's talk about this. Number 3 is your cafe quality. Much like how not all home baristas are the same, not all coffee shops are the same. There's a big difference between those who end up using La Marzocco's and Weber's and Malcone higher end models versus you're buying a cheaper Astoria. Nothing wrong with that. With a older grinder like a K30, again, nothing wrong with that. And then you're probably going for more commodity type rather than just focusing on quality. Again, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a different business model. One of the biggest things that I found is if you are drive-through focused, you're not necessarily bad, because this is how you make the money. Just being real. Our coffee shop does not have one because I wanted our brand to be known for sit-in, high-end, high-quality stuff rather than commodity and convenience. But drive-through makes money, and a lot of times drive-throughs have an even bigger focus on speed, to where now they might say every 45 seconds, we need that drink to be out the window, because now you have a long line of cars who are all getting mad at you. If you've ever been stuck in a drive-thru for 20 minutes, you understand the frustration. And now that person will go to somewhere else that is more convenient. Not necessarily a place that is better quality, because if they're worried that I'm going to have to sit there and wait for 20 minutes because we did not hit this 45-second metric, they're going to go somewhere else. They need to get to work. They need to get wherever they're going. And they also just don't want to sit there and wait that long. If you're at an in-house coffee shop where you have good seating, you have the music, you're kind of paying for the building and the experience there. There's a big difference in presentation when you are given a nice mug with a latte in it versus a to-go cup. And I don't have that here, but you get the idea. So to break all of that down, I tend to say this. You've usually got coffee shops on two ends of a spectrum. You have the quality focused. Usually they are slower, they are sit-in, and they don't really care how long you wait. Obviously they do, but all of a sudden it being more like 8 or 10 minutes is much more acceptable. Then you have convenience shops. And convenience shops are a lot more speed oriented, and they want the drink to get out there as fast as possible. Usually it's drive-throughs, and that does end up affecting what you serve and how you serve it. Let's make this even simpler. We're going to make a grid, okay? On one axis, you have convenience, and the other you have experience. So experience, I'm talking, aesthetic and vibe. And for convenience, I'm talking drive-through. And the other axis is, one is quality versus speed. In my experience, coffee shops that sit right here in the middle of all this, they try to be a decent experience and fairly convenient and pretty good quality, but also quite fast. These are called out of business because that's what happens. Starbucks, for example, is known for convenience and speed. They are somewhere out on this end of the grid. There's also a lot of coffee shops that this is your road shop, all that stuff. Our coffee shop is towards the experience and quality side. We are sit-in only. We don't do a drive-through, nothing like that. And you can also have some very interesting models to where, maybe you are in a gym. And so you have a very cool reading area, but you're also trying to give out drinks quite quickly to people working out. So you might be towards experience and speed, and then quality and convenience. This one's very tough to do from a marketing perspective, because if something comes out very quickly, people assume it's not very good. Fast food does not have a giant preconceived quality element. It's doable. It's tough. Same with this speed and experience. doable but tough, because if you're there for a very short period of time, it's hard to make a meaningful impact. But maybe you can do it. Usually you will end up landing somewhere towards this side or somewhere towards this side, with this being your hyper fast drive-through and this being your sit-in coffee shop. But what you don't want to do, and what most shops end up failing with, is they end up landing somewhere towards the center here. And a lot of times they try to compete with Starbucks on this end, which I think is a big mistake. You need to make yourself known over here and then slowly add on convenience and speed options like a drive-through. Anyway, you get the idea. Coffee shop or coffee at home, you don't think about this. Not one bit. Point number 4, and I'm going to be really quick with this one, and that is home setups. Specifically, they are usually mediocre. It's true. You probably have a mediocre home setup. Most people do. That's fine. I'm not making fun of that. I'm not saying you're wrong for it. It's just the reality. And so a lot of people are at home. They've got their Breville Bambinos, fine enough. And you've got some kind of Baratza ESP as your espresso grinder or an Opus or whatever, and you're like, you know what, I am one of those people. I clearly, with my setup, am going to rival the La Marzocco and Malconic E80S at my local coffee shop. No, you won't. You will not. Now, if the coffee shop is incompetent, sure, you can do that. But you will not compete with them in terms of quality, because they just outclass you. I hate to be this way. You need good gear to get good espresso. Now, you can, as a barista, do a lot of little tips and tricks and life hacks and stuff to get better results than your gear would normally have. But if on that flavor ceiling out of a 1 to 10, your gear limits you at a 5, you are not going to get a 10. You might be able to do some tricks and hacks and get to like a 6 out of 10, maybe, but you are still stuck at a 5 out of 10. And that's what a lot of people are at. They're between, what I see is most home setups will limit you to a 5 to 7 out of 10 on espresso specifically. Now, I found that pour overs tend to be a little more forgiving, but they still require a really good grinder. You might be stuck at a 5 to 7 out of 10, and a lot of people are. And all that has happened is they go to mediocre shops, people who either don't know what they are doing, or they have a bad setup, or their gear isn't serviced, whatever it is. And they're like, wow, we're so much better than them. You probably actually aren't, unless you have the gear at home to rival them and you know how to use it. The cold water, I know people don't like it and it might make people mad, but welcome to the real world. Point 5 is the cost of commercial. The reason I bring this up is a commercial machine has to have 5 major factors. You obviously need quality. You need consistency. You need speed. Remember, this is the big one. You need reliability, because if you don't produce espresso, you don't stay in business. And you need ease, so you don't have to sit there and train someone for 3 years on how to be a pro barista. So you don't need owner experience to run as a barista and run the shop. This is expensive. Specifically, your speed, reliability, and ease, I would say, accounts for about 60% of the cost. To produce things fast, guess what? You need a whole lot more metal. You need more group heads. If you want it to be reliable, you need very good components rated for a whole lot of uses. And if you need ease, you need a lot of luxury features. Like you might have built-in scales, or you have flow meters for volumetric brewing, all that kind of stuff. This stuff adds up very fast. But quality and consistency, I can probably get that at home on a Gaggia, like a Gaggia Classic. It's going to be slow. I'm going to have to descale it a lot, or it won't be reliable. It definitely wouldn't be reliable in a commercial setting where you're doing 60 drinks a day. And it's also not very easy to do. It requires a lot of knowledge on the machine. But if all I have to focus on is quality and consistency, I can punch way above my weight class, where all of a sudden, if at home a normal machine, like a GS3 or a Linea or something like that, it does have all of these to some degree. And so If this bottom half is still 60% of the cost, we can compete with a coffee shop level for something in the ballpark of like maybe $5,000. But the nice thing about something like Agaggia is if we completely forego all these bottom pieces, you can cut out the full 60% of the cost and have none of the money going towards these three in any form or fashion. And then all of a sudden, for maybe like 15% of the cost, you can punch towards something like a La Marzocco Strada. This is specifically on your ability to pull a single good shot and go toe-to-toe on a single good shot. Do anything more than that, you're probably going to struggle. At home, you don't need more group heads. You don't need more fancy volumetrics. You don't need much more of anything. You can do a lot on even a lever. At a coffee shop, you are bound by law, not really, but maybe the laws of business, to focus a ton on speed, reliability, and ease. It does not take many down days for you to wish you spent more money on a more reliable machine. It does not take many poorly trained baristas for you to wish that you had an easier machine to use, not have to spend 10 or 15 more hours training them. And it does not take many days at all, just in general, before you to wish that you were producing drinks faster and your customers were more happy. This is so expensive to do. That level of output is incredibly hard on machines. So you need something that is truly over-engineered and overbuilt to handle that. At home, you do not. You can get away with very low cost. Point number 6, and I think this is another one that's going to make me a bit unpopular, and it's singular focus. You could imagine anyone. So you have person number A and person number B. Yes, I know, number and A and B. This person has done 10,000 reps of any skill. And this person has done 100 reps of a skill. Let's say in general, this person was doing it, with less care. So they were being a little bit more haphazard. And this person was being a lot more focused. Now, I know I said singular focus, but I'm going to throw you for a loop. Who do you think is going to be better at it? I'm going to tell you, person A wins 100 out of 100 times because they have 100 times the experience. We, as a culture, have lost a focus on experience and just doing things in absurd amount of times to get good at it. We think we need to be good at everything immediately because you can Google and maybe bypass the first 500 reps. You're at 600 rep quality and you focused. So maybe these 100 reps feel like another 300. It's triple the amount you learn. You are now at 800 reps, equivalent to the 10,000 reps that your coffee shop person had. So turns out person A is an actual barista and person B is a home enthusiast. And this might be what you do in 6 months or a year or something like that. Your barista is going to know a heck of a lot more than your home enthusiast in terms of actual practical knowledge, not the theory and not where the beans come from and not, different growing season and the difference between a 72 and a 48-hour anaerobic process. Whenever it comes to actually making good tasting espresso with the ingredients you have, your barista wins every single day of the week because they have an absurd amount of reps over your home enthusiast. And on top of that, coffee shops have to do one thing. Usually they have a house blend and they just do that over and over and over. They only need to dial in one bean and be good at redialing it as it drips. And all of the baristas there, they have tens of thousands of reps on that one bean or that one blend. Yes, it does change over time a little bit, but that is a slow and gradual frog in the kettle type change. They have the absurd advantage over the home barista of being very, very, very focused on the one thing, getting hundreds of iterations a day, and always knowing how to handle that exact thing. So out of that 9 out of 10 on the flavor ceiling, they can hit 9 out of 10 every single time. If you are a home barista, you know what it's like to make a shot that should be good and you have to dump it down the sink because it sucks. Because we're not consistent, because you're changing your beans, you're changing your grind, you're changing your method, you're changing your water temperature, your pressure profiling in a different way, you're using a different type of bottled water, whatever it is, you change up too much. We are not consistent at home. Just the nature of it. You're not making enough to be consistent. You can't afford that. You have to change up your beans every couple weeks, even though you've only pulled 10 or 15 shots. You just can't do what a coffee shop can do in being singularly focused. And I don't know how to express more seriously what a singularly focused person can do. I've always thought if you could do something for 20 years, the odds that you're one of the best in the world at it are 100%. Coffee shops that have been around a little while have 100 or 1,000-fold the repetitions that you do at home making espresso, and it's all focused usually around one bean. They are good at it. They are so much better than we are at home. Do not forget that. So, can you make better stuff at home? Yes. 9 out of 10 is actually a very hard thing to produce in espresso. Almost impossible. A 10 out of 10, a couple times in your life, realistically. I think that most coffee shops that are consistent, well-trained, and know how to do the 9 out of 10 consistently, you're not going to beat that at home very often. You're occasionally going to hit the magic formula, or you've been doing it at home for 5 to 10 years, and then sure. But you're probably not necessarily, maybe you're watching this video, but you're not watching educational content that much at that point because you already know how to do it. You're very satisfied with your results. This 10 out of 10 is years and years and years and years of experience to hit that with any level of consistency. So that is why the singular focus, in my opinion, for a good coffee shop that's well dialed, beats you at home almost every time. Just to illustrate that. And this is a really, really good coffee I got here from Lemma, local roaster. It's actually from China, which is cool. And this is our house espresso. Our house espresso has lots of chocolate, lots of caramel. This is a double anaerobic with blackberry, juicy notes, and chocolate. So let's say fruity ferment. Quality-wise, this is probably a higher end bean than our stuff. And that's not because our stuff is bad. This is just really, really high end. Our stuff is quite good. We only source good stuff. But this is a no gripes blend. With anything you do in a coffee shop, it has to be no gripes. You can't come in and serve a double anaerobic fermenty flavor and not expect your regulars to get mad. To get the most out of this double anaerobic ferment, I have to be really, really good at home. And I'm pretty happy with the results. I think that because I only have one bag of this, me getting to the end of this bag still won't be as quality. Now, you might enjoy the flavor more, and that's fine, but the quality of the shot and the balance and the smoothness and all of that will not compete because I have pulled thousands of shots with our Ember Espresso, and I know exactly how it works. I know it's nuanced. I can look at it in the puck and know if it's going to be a good shot. I'm at that point now. With this, I don't know. I don't know where I'm starting. I just know the grind size because it's a lighter roast, needs to be a little bit finer. That's about it. So hopefully I can get there and hopefully I can have some phenomenal shots, but I might get one out of this bag. Meanwhile, this is always good. I almost never pull a bad shot with this unless I calibrated to something different and just forgot to calibrate back. And at the end of it, this is 0.7. And that is just your experience. I know it's very similar to singular focus. Your experience, twofold. One, with a variety of beans, lets you calibrate in with unique stuff, new stuff, a lot quicker. And so I would say it probably took me 5 years of serious espresso making to feel like I could even get these notes out of this bag of Lemma. That said, it took me 6 months with our bean because I was using it all the time to feel like I've mastered it, essentially. I know exactly what it is. And now I taste test almost everything against it to understand the flavors that I'm working with. And keeping in this same vein, let's also talk about point number 8, and that's your purpose. Our Ember Espresso here is meant to be a crowd pleaser. That's what it is. It's a no gripes blend. No one's going to come in and try it and say, man, that's got too many wild flavors, or I don't like those notes. Now, it might not be your number one most reached for. That's fine. It's caramel. It's cocoa. A little bit of fruit. but it's not gonna blow you up with fruity notes and blackberry and juice and all that stuff. I always say that people want coffee and not jasmine tea. There's been a lot of florals that I've sold and roasted and done the best with them that I could, and they were actually good beans. Then people try them, they're like, wow, that tastes like jasmine tea or whatever it is. I didn't like that because they wanted chocolate and caramel, not fruity ferment and not jasmine tea. At home, you can experiment. Your purpose is just to taste the flavor spectrum. At a coffee shop, your goal is to make a very no gripes, approachable blend that is good for no matter who it is that walks in, whether they're the most experienced coffee drinker or it's someone coming from Starbucks who gets their triple mocha frappuccino and they just want something that they can taste the coffee. You've got that whole spectrum. So does that kind of knock you down a little bit as a shop? Yes, but your singular focus and your experience with those beans usually means you're going to be way out competing your home barista competitor, so to speak. Let's get serious. At home versus the coffee shop, who is better? You have every right as a home barista to be better than your local specialty shop. I think that the coffee culture has overblown mediocrity because there's so many mediocre shops, and we're not actually doing punch for punch with the serious homeowner and the serious shop owner. Shops have focus, and focus is deadly. Shops have experience, and experience is deadly. And shops also know what their purpose is whenever they produce stuff. They can tailor every little detail to the exact bean they use. Do it thousands and thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of times, and iterate and refine to be perfect at it. They will hit the 9 out of 10 if they're a good shop. Again, this is assuming good shop. At home, with this 12-ounce bag at 300 something grams, what do you get? 12, 15 attempts to make this perfect? That's tough, especially whenever you're not calibrated in for it and you don't even know where to start. So yes, you can do better at home, but the focus of the coffee shop that's well done is very hard to beat. Don't underestimate that. So yes, home baristas are better. Yay. Home with a smiley face. You can be better. Congrats. That is the conclusion. But the odds that you are extremely little. You need the right setup. You need the experience. You need the focus. You need to know what you're doing. You need to know why you're doing it too. Then you have to compete against people that are absurdly obsessed with one thing. Obviously, you can branch out as a coffee shop, but even then, they still do it a whole lot. Be realistic. Seriously, just be realistic about it. Don't think that you're going to destroy your local Slayer because you happen to have a Bambino and a Dream. Yes, you win at home. I would hope that we can stop overblowing this issue and just keep it in the right perspective. I've always said at home, your flavor ceiling is higher, but it is very tough to hit that flavor ceiling. Now, this whole channel is dedicated to building basically altars to espresso, get the best gear possible, best process possible, using great beans, and only focusing on the things that matter. My hope is that you at home can beat my coffee shop. That'd be great. It's going to be hard for you to do. I'm very proud of our shop. I think we absolutely kill it in terms of flavor. My baristas always make fun of me because I'm like, dang, we have good espresso every single time I try it in the morning. I actually mean that. It's not like I'm always surprised at how good it tastes in the morning just because, I'm not putting in all the ritual. The ritual is supposed to be the promise that it's good. Instead, I can make it in 40 seconds. And I try it. I'm like, wow, that's way better than the amount of effort I put into it because I spent months, years even, perfecting this. Hundreds of iterations on the beans, and then months dialing in the gear and trying different things and A/B testing every little piece to make it as perfect as possible to my flavor. So anyway, hope this is helpful. Keep on watching. I appreciate it.